Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for Pandemic Fall of Rome. This is a little behind, considering that I think this is the...
2014?
This did not come out in 2014.
No.
This
2019,
is
2018?
This is the last standalone pandemic that they did, I think, that... Because, like, the Clone Wars one and the war say it's like a pandemic game.
Mechanic.
Or pandemic system, yeah.
Yes, system is what they called them.
Yeah.
No.
So they're not quite the same as whenever they did Iberia and Cthulhu and then
Rising Tide.
Rising Tide.
I don't think Matt is also involved in those two games. Like they
Is he not?
I don't think he is a designer for those games, but
Okay.
they took. I think they basically took his system
Okay,
and gave him credit for the system.
gotcha. And then there was also the real-time one, which
Yeah.
it's like just scratch out Pandemic off that because anyway. So this one, out of all of the iterations of the Pandemic games, is the one that that's like, is this really Pandemic?
Yeah.
Like, because it feels so far removed from it, but yet familiar at the same time, that if you've played any of the other games, you can kind of jump in, I feel. I mean, you can attest to that, because you hadn't played this version yet.
Right.
Was it still, like, you were able to jump in because you played all those other ones?
So, now that you mention it, I would say that this might be the game where they said, maybe we can just license the mechanics
Exactly.
to other...
Yeah. That was literally
Other
my
systems.
thought. I was waiting for you to finish your comment to make that comment.
Because the big difference is everything else, with the exception of the Cthulhu, everything else is fighting diseases.
Yeah.
Until, well, Rising Tide? Is that?
Rising Tide is stemming water.
Okay.
I hate that game so much.
Okay. So that might have been when they said, can we really call it pandemic if the disease is not directly involved?
Yeah, unless they're going real, like, I can't think of the word. But where they're like, humans are the disease.
Oh, Cthulhu, yeah.
No, I'm talking about for this one, where
Right.
it's like, oh, like...
So in that sense, there would be similarity with Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, because it was like the cultists.
Yeah,
Right.
who don't move, but they
But
do
some-
outbreak
that's
in
right.
the same way.
Yeah.
Right.
So I could see that. But again, the base mechanics, the basic 4 or 5 moves are pretty much the same. So yeah, it did feel that way to me. But it was... The significant difference is the diseases are moving toward you instead of...
Instead of just kind of showing up.
Yeah.
you have to go chase them down.
Yeah. Even though I consider Pandemic to be an extremely thematic game, because it's like, because of the epidemic system
Right.
of where Ebola is, it's going to naturally continue to spring up in those same areas.
Yeah. And that's going to spread from those.
Exactly.
Right.
And here, the only time that new cubes are ever added randomly is when a revolt happens.
Right.
And even that's thematic. It's just like all the shit that's happening up here, and then it's all of a sudden now you have a revolt over here.
Right.
But it's like, okay, well, we'll just let them throw a fit in Corduba, because chances are it's not going to spread from there.
Except for the fact that now it's a card that's in the system, and so because there's 3 of them, you can go into decline because they will spread and then just keep spreading. And it's slow, so in some ways it's a little slower for that fact. And outbreaks are a little slower. We had one chain that was bad,
Yeah.
but that, like in Pandemic, you get the first chain, and then 2 turns later you get another chain,
Yeah.
and 2 turns later you get a bigger and worse change, and that's the end of the game.
Right. And then this, it's like when you lose, which we played on Heroic, and
Right.
honestly, I wasn't really sitting here going, we have no shot.
Right.
We have no shot. I felt hopeful the entire time, unlike when we did Iberia, where I threw, it's like all the unique disease
Yeah.
abilities and the
And like
patience.
halfway through, it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
We just killed the human race. Everybody. We made super viruses before like penicillin was just created.
Exactly. Or I've done base Pandemic with all the expansions,
Yes.
and it's impossible.
Yeah.
But here you can look back on instances that it was your own decision.
Right.
We actively didn't run up to the Anglo-Saxons area to quell that because we were dealing with other stuff. We actively chose to do the decline abilities of the events
Twice.
both times and also in areas where we probably shouldn't have because we were already like that was like right after we had the massive decline one.
Yeah,
But you make those decisions.
right. And it's hard to see with 2020 vision. Like, if we didn't have that fort removed, then White would have popped twice, and they might have sacked Rome with it.
Exactly. We most likely would have lost if we just didn't use them.
Right. So it's one of those things where it's super hard. Like, in kind of great. So we got rid of white, or we allied with White and Black early on. But what that really meant was, like, for me, that's 2 to 3 turns of me not quelling any type of rebellions, not fighting any guys,
True.
which just means they're spreading faster, we're
Yeah.
getting more revolts. But at the same time, you're like, but we have to do this. We have to do this.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much the same tension of the original
Right.
Pandemic.
Exactly. The difference in this is like you either because you have 2 ways to win based off the 5 alliances. You either ally with them, or you remove them from the board.
Right.
Which
at one
is
time.
slightly different because in regular Pandemic it's just find a cure for all
Right.
4. But you always aim to do a eradication because
Right.
then those cards are dead cards.
Yeah, at least the first one.
Yeah.
It's a cure.
It's always situational. Like I
Yep.
always feel in those games. Here, it's like, well, which one are we going to kill? Well, whichever one happens to be the least whenever we can do it.
Right.
But
And then it spread out as everything got. You called it. You said, I don't think we can eradicate anything.
no,
I think we need to ally.
because blue was our least problem at the beginning because I happened to be over there doing my little circle.
And we were pulling 4 cards, so because it doesn't count, like we can eliminate, but it has to go through the entire round. So you have to pull. No, like if we eliminate orange, like we eradicate orange, you can't pull from those 4 cards a orange card. The minute you
Exactly.
do, and there's no Legionnaire to stop them when they come onto the board,
It's like,
it
well,
doesn't matter.
another round.
Right.
So, I mean, this system is just so fantastic that I feel if you know anyone who just hates Pandemic for whatever reason, I mean, if they're just like not a cooperative gamer, then
Right.
this is not it. But if they don't like I have a friend who he likes the dice game, the Pandemic dice game,
Yeah.
which blows my mind because I hate that one. I'm like, so we just sit here and roll dice and hope. Yeah, that's fun. But and he liked Legacy.
Yeah.
But I've always told him I'm like get Fall of Rome. One, he's
Or at least
also
play it.
yeah play it.
Play
I
Fall
mean,
of
this
Rome.
one has the actual solo
Yep.
mode. So I'm like he's a solo gamer. It's like get that. If you don't like the Pandemic system, it's still kind of there, but it's like underneath everything because
I mean, so kind of the Pandemic system is it's still the same 3 actions every single player's turn. Follows the
4 actions.
Oh, 4 actions.
There's one of them that has 3.
Well, what's the 4 actions? This do
Oh,
4
sorry, I
actions.
thought you meant do
Oh,
4
No,
actions.
it's the 3 phases, however you want.
Oh,
it.
okay. I'm like what?
You have 3 phases.
Yeah.
You know, you do your 4 actions. You draw 2 cards. You draw however many bad cards depending on your ranking,
Which increases.
which increases, and then you
based
just move on.
A drawn event.
And so that's pretty standard. So again, if you played a Pandemic, you know those 3 phases.
Yep.
They're always the same.
Yeah, you're gonna look at the actions you can do and
Yep.
be like, if there's move, there's that, okay, that's the
And they're pretty clean.
yeah, the fortify. That's the
Right.
research center.
Yeah. But if you don't, it's totally different thematically.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with the theme, or just the
I
concept.
guess yeah. In 2023, the theme of Pandemic is a little,
You might have
more
gotten
serious
tired.
than or tired.
There are a lot of people I think that got tired of Pandemic during the Pandemic because it was common.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they just saw absolute. Because I remember I had a friend who owned a game store and he said he couldn't hate Pandemic on the shelf.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of it is because people Google it in Pandemic and it pops
Yeah.
up and everybody's at home and so they're looking
Yeah.
and it's like,
And
okay,
they're
it's
like,
a number
oh,
one
that's
rated board
morbid.
game.
I'll
Yeah.
play that, and then I'm over here with Plague Inc. and I'm like, or
Actually, I read an article why one of the reasons they were theorizing why it was popular during COVID is because it gave people more of a sense of power, like we can overcome this.
Yeah.
Until you die. In the game.
Well, it's just playing easy mode every time and you never
Yeah.
lose.
yeah, I feel like if we hadn't played on
Heroic.
Heroic,
Yeah.
we probably would have.
Done better.
We probably would have. Well,
Well,
yeah,
we probably would have succeeded.
I feel like we might have won because that would have just put.
We probably would have been at least one revolt less at this point. Maybe even
Yeah.
we might have just hit.
Like, where the?
Yeah, one revolt less could very well have prevented
Next
this
card
mess.
would have been a
Another revolt.
no.
Oh.
Would have been an event. The events were actually relatively no, they were kind of clustered because it's event, then 2 cards, then an event card, then an event.
Which that doesn't help us because the first half of the deck had no events, but the one that we drew at the very beginning.
No, I know, yeah, because this one is replace 1 barbarian with a legion, or going and that's such a neat system.
Yeah.
Choosing to go into decline for a better ability.
Yep.
Or replace up to 3 barbarians in 1 city with an equal number of legions.
So that's another thing I love about this is, again, I really do enjoy Pandemic, but you only have 1 player power. Here, everyone has 2 player powers. One is much more universal, and the next one's more situational.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Yeah.
It always feels good.
There's a lot of depth to this, and I feel like they kind of did that whenever they introduced Iberia.
Yeah.
Because Iberia, the player powers got a little bit more unique.
Robust.
Yeah.
Unique.
Yeah.
And then you also have your battle power.
Right.
Which, that's kind of the central focus, because obviously it's defending Rome from 5 different tribes that are trying to kill you. What do you guys think of the battling in this?
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's probably the least Pandemic feeling
Yeah.
because it's random.
Yeah, I'm really curious on your thoughts, because I know you don't like randomness in games that are pretty strategic.
So I don't know. So this is probably one of those ones where I love it. It adds
Yeah.
a tension level to it. Because, like I was telling you at the very beginning of the video, is like we need to pump out legions when we're rich with legions, because once you hit that, when it goes to 2, you always feel poor on legions. From that point forward, I've always felt poor.
Yeah, they balance out the randomness, I think, with the ally part, since that's what you're trying to do anyway. They don't become dead cards, but then you can just go in and be like, anyway, these 3 guys are now more legions.
Right.
And most people, like my character, is really good about that.
Right.
So I was able to kind of have a one-man army going around.
Yeah.
It can be annoying, though, if you roll poorly the entire game.
I rolled poorly. I don't think I had any good rolls.
Not really. I think you traded
or
just had all
or
your guys
lost.
die. Yeah.
So, in that sense, it's kind of rough. It's also a little weird because, again, we kind of compared it to the contamination markers, or not the quarantine markers, where your legions are kind of multifaceted and they move around and die often, and it's hard to kind of keep them. And like you think, okay, I have 3 up there, that's going to be good, and then one bad pull, and they're all gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, we're nowhere close to the fort anymore, so that fort's gone. And forts are super expensive in this game.
Yeah.
Like, super expensive to put out.
Yeah.
We had the advantage
Which is
that
why
you
I
were
came
good.
in.
And
Why do you want a fort? I'll put it in.
Right. But that to me, but again, the minute you hit the 2, it becomes kind of super expensive again. Because I spend 2 to get a fort, and then send another action just to get 2 more legionnaires there.
Yeah.
And if I really want to defend that fort, I need to leave at least 2 legionnaires there. So there's another recruit action. So realistically, your entire turn could be move that once from one space to one space, and then just put enough stuff there to hold that spot, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what I felt like we ran into my character is I kept pulling everybody's cards, which was great. That's how we got a lot of those guys removed.
Yeah.
But then it was like, but I'm doing nothing else.
Yeah, that happens in like regular Pandemic when you're the scientist.
Right.
You just sit there and wait for people to bring you shit, which is thematic. You're the scientist. Why would you go out in the field? It's like, just come to me with the info and I'll find a cure.
Right.
And then since my character was all about breaking up barbarians and marching them into areas, having forts near me allowed me to... So I was able to march around. You didn't rely on me too many for cards.
No.
In fact, I think it was just Brett for the most part. So when you did ally, it's just like, oh, great. Now I'm gathering more people to jump around and kill and stop the spots. Like me being able to come up here, and where orange was our biggest problem was no longer a problem.
Right. So what do you think about the dice?
Going into it, having not played this one before, going into it, I was a little concerned that, why do they have random dice roll? Now, they do in, like, Cthulhu Pandemic. They got the 1 die.
Yeah.
But it's only 1, and it's an instant effect, and it doesn't come up very often.
Right.
this is a key mechanic of the game.
Yeah.
I don't think that it eliminates the strategy, and
Right.
it is kind of a nice. I hope this goes well.
Yeah.
Rather
Right.
than a foregone win or loss.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it works well. And it's the recruits. Is that what they're called? Enlisting?
Oh, like with the Alliance, the enlisting barbarians.
No, I'm sorry. Just the
Yeah.
recruits themselves. The fact that you can take them with you
Mm-hmm.
and relocate them strategically and use them in battle. I mean, again, works very well with the theme, and it really changes this from a whole different Pandemic game.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, I think they've done an excellent job of every Pandemic game is a genuinely different game
It is.
Right.
with basic similarities.
Yeah, even the Rising Tide one is completely different from anything. I just hate it. Yeah, I mean, because like if you attribute the legions as quarantine markers, they're just a more versatile quarantine specialist because the quarantine specialist is
Right.
so specific. It's just like I can put it here, and that's it.
Or
Right.
Iberia the Water.
The water, yeah, I almost feel like they kind of took because the water was also just in a spot it protects these adjacent areas.
Yeah.
Right.
And here it's like, okay, we're going to station this troop here,
And you're marching with us.
and yep, and you're going to come with me.
And I'm going to fly. or sail.
Yeah,
And bring
you're
you
going to come with me and die because
You're-
It's like, oh, are you a general? No, I'm a merchant.
but this is where I actually kind of do love this a little bit. Because it's Pandemic mechanic, but it also feels like a dudes on the map game.
It does, yeah.
It feels like I am literally marching my legions to go fight a threat.
Right.
We don't know if we're going to win or lose this fight.
Yeah.
But because it's cooperative, you never feel like, oh, I shouldn't attack. Seth is not having a good fight this game, so I shouldn't go. I'm going to go fight Brett. No, we're all basically
Yeah.
individual generals trying to stem the tide and kill the enemy.
Yeah.
And it feels good because
It's-
again, they march in a path. It's not random.
Yeah. And the fact is, every time like you rolled poorly or any of us rolled poorly, I was never like, well, we lost.
Right.
You know, it was like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well,
You got to change our strategy. now.
yeah. Like I
Right.
was hoping you'd kill them, you didn't. So how are we going to deal with that?
Right.
And some people might think this is obviously true random,
Right.
but
Yeah, there's no mitigation or anything.
there's no mitigation, at least from our
Maybe-
abilities.
Yeah, maybe other characters have one.
I don't know if there was any characters
Says
that.
You had that one. I had that one. The Vestalis has an unused event deck
Yeah.
that lets them pull from, which that would have been perfect because we didn't fucking draw any. We got a person who can move from port to port. Not really. There's no mitigation, but the pink, the Magister Militum, they reduce the number of lost legions by 1.
Yeah.
So mitigation. It's just actually a better mitigation instead of trying to re-roll.
Right.
But I mean, my argument of like, well, there's dice in here, so that's true random. It's like, well, it's kind of true random with
Cards.
both
Decks.
decks.
Right.
True.
It's like you can try and count cards as best as your ability. I mean, at a certain point, you can almost guarantee what's going to come up next, but you're never certain.
Right.
Were the revolts randomly shuffled, or
No.
Pile
They're
wide,
they're the same
shuffle
as the
that pile,
epidemics.
yeah.
Yep. So
Okay.
7 out and then shuffle the different.
So
stuff.
theoretically, you can have 2 next to each other, but then you will know that you're going to have a
gap.
good gap for a while.
Exactly.
okay? That's
Although in a game with 7
Figured.
revolts, the good gap is like
4 cards.
it's not as good as other ones. And I mean, and like honestly, you're guaranteed pretty much to remove barbarians. There is a 1 out of 6 chance of you just losing one of your guys.
Right.
And you're most likely not going to go into a battle with 1
Right.
legion.
yeah.
Unless it's super desperate.
Yeah, you're like, okay, it's a Hail Mary play. We
Yeah.
just need to remove 1.
Because we know there's 3 paths of Rome for it to do, and it's going to do one of the 3, and so we just got killed this spot.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, out of all the... Like, I haven't played base Pandemic in a while.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the last time I played. It's been a while.
Like, obviously, I throw in most of the expansions
Right.
from it, but just base Pandemic... I mean, technically, if we're talking about Pandemic Legacy, the first month
Right.
is base Pandemic,
Yeah.
and then it's immediately not. I have a toss-up of which one between this and Iberia that I like more. Like, they're both so good for different reasons.
and that's my thing. So if I have to pick one, I'm going to pick Fall of Rome as my best. But to me, they are very separate games. Iberia is a much more classical, just more refined Pandemic game, where this is kind of to your point. It was kind of the thought, we can now just switch and say it's the system and attach it to a lot of different games and do something different.
Yeah.
So to me, it was kind of a fresh because I had played a lot of different Pandemic, and then I played this, like, man, this is so good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel exactly like Pandemic because it's not,
Yeah.
but it's the system of Pandemic.
This is between the two. Iberia has more of the kind of like you're reactive
Right.
a lot of the time because it does the same thing of like, oh well, this is our problem area. It's going to continue to be our problem area the entire game. Which here it's like where they're coming from,
Right.
like
And, what
And the
paths-
path.
and the
The
paths
two
that
paths that they're going to follow.
Yep.
Black is the only one that only has one path, and it takes the longest to get there, but it has the higher chance of popping up during a revolt. So you're a lot more proactive,
Right.
at least at the beginning. Then probably halfway through the game it turns, and you're kind of doing a little bit of both. So it kind of depends on what you want. If you like that kind of like, what's going to happen, let's deal with it now, or if you like let's start off with a plan at the beginning and try and stick to it. I think they're both great.
Yeah.
I really don't have any complaints
No.
on this one. I think it's extremely solid. You guys got anything? Anything else?
Any complaints?
No, that I-
Iberia looks better. At least for me, art-wise, I really like the look of Iberia.
Yeah.
yeah,
But this makes sense
yeah.
Yeah.
for what it is.
They could have done this in Latin.
They did all the names that we couldn't pronounce.
And I'll say I actually kind of like the fact these are taller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is kind of nice. They're big, bold, nice
Right.
colors.
I mean, the overall design of like the cards
Yeah.
is done really well. But yeah,
Yeah.
like if I
Oh,
was
yeah.
comparing the two,
Much more architectural.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, on the scale of 1 to 10, what are you guys giving Fall of Rome? Pandemic Fall of Rome.
It's a 10 for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Brett? Dang.
First time, so I'd like to play a few times
Sure.
to really judge it, but I'm going to say at least 9.
That's where I'm at, as a 9 as well.
I mean, the reason it's a 10 for me, it's in my collection.
Yeah.
I would honestly get rid of it after I got rid of Base Pandemic. I'll get rid of Base Pandemic
Yeah.
first. So for me, and I think Pandemic is a fantastic. It's easily a 9.
Yeah, no, when people are like, I don't like Pandemic, it blows my mind. I'm like, especially with how far they've come with this entire system of what, 2000... When did Base Pandemic come out?
I don't. Only a while ago.
Yeah.
Is it 14 maybe?
No.
15
or earlier.
Or maybe.
It was
I thought it
definitely
was
before.
2008. It is 2008.
Okay,
Wow.
I was gonna say it was like it had to be earlier than 2014 because my wife and I were dating and playing this game, and that was pre.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was well
14.
known at that point.
Yep, 2008 is when the original Pandemic came out, and then this one came out
Say
2018. So
Okay.
10 years later,
Okay.
10,
I said 18 or 19.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure
So-
it was one of those two.
so 10 years later, and it's like they just had that system locked down. It's the reason
Yeah.
why Pandemic is like widely known as the best cooperative game. It's not my favorite cooperative game, but it's in there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and whenever I do my top 100 of the year, I lump them all together,
Right.
and it's always super high.
Right.
Because how you get like
Yeah.
Iberia, the Legacy games, which are all fantastic.
Yep.
This one, regular Pandemic with all expansions.
It's
can't go wrong.
Super clean. Yep.
So, that's our thoughts on Pandemic Fall of Rome, everyone. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.